people say they want to lose weight, and the answer I always come up with is why? Why weight? What is it about weight? If you lost your leg, you'd lose weight. Would you have achieved your goal? And for most people, the answer would be no. So what do you actually want? Most people will say, I want to feel better, and they'll describe something, getting up the stairs, doing this, doing that. Most people, in fact, will say they want to look better. If they're really honest, they want to get into this dress or get that pair of jeans on and don't fit them, or lose the gut and whatever it is. But mostly it's aesthetics, and the actual goal, when you really cut it down for people who want to lose weight, 9 out of 10 times, is to lose fat. And so the very first thing, the very first piece of advice, which is absolutely critical to this, is to forget about your weight. You don't want to lose weight. That's not your goal. That was never the goal. The goal is to lose fat. And if your goal is to lose fat, you want to measure your fat, and then you want to measure how good your interventions are at reducing the fat on your body. Everyone did it at school, and most people have never done it since. You get a set of calipers and you measure the amount of fat underneath the upper arm, underneath the triceps muscle, and the amount of fat on the abdomen in front of the abdominal muscles. And it's very easy to get the calipers. You just buy them on eBay. They cost a few quid and nothing at all. Almost everyone has scales. How many people do you know got a set of calipers? So the very first thing is, if you're going to lose fat, you need to identify how much fat you've got, and you need to measure it, and then you need to start recording your success in terms of fat loss, not weight loss. And there's a lot of reasons for this, which I will go into now. On the topic, there's a guy who happens to weigh 15 stone. Now, the reason I put him in there is because, generally speaking, when you think of a 15 stone bloke, you think of a bit of a gut. And, as you can see, Usain Bolt is clearly not fatty, but he weighs 15 stone. So, why do we get fat? What is it and why do we get it? Well, basically, what happens is everyone knows the old expression, if you consume more calorific energy than you're expending, then it's stored as fat in the body, and the excess is stored. Why? Is because it's a survival mechanism. We have evolved, we are just clever monkeys after all, and these monkeys had inconsistent food supplies, and so by having fat on our bodies, we are able to survive when times are lean, when there's a shortage of food. And that's really key. This idea here will come to more, but this is key as to why traditional dieting is actually more harmful than good in most cases. So, we're going to understand how to control our fat content. We need to understand how we use the energy we get from food. Most of the energy from food is used for respiration, which is the cellular process that allows movement of the muscles and basically allows life to go on in our cells. Some of it's used for growth and repair. Obviously, when you're young and growing, you need a lot of food. When we finish growing, it's generally to repair our muscles and repair our cells. But if we can instigate a period of growth again, then we can actually use a lot of energy to facilitate that growth. And that's where the basis of my technique for losing fat comes from. Anything that we're not using for respiration and growth or growth and repair, we'll use for fat production, or we'll excrete it. Now, you'd be surprised at how much energy you can get out of the poo of someone who's not on a diet, who's eating a high-calorie diet, who's just been to the loo. If you were to try and see how much energy there is in the poo of someone who's 3 or 4 or 5 weeks into a low-calorie diet, you'll find that there's almost no energy in their poo because their body has become very good at getting the energy out. And again, that is something that we can control. So, why does the traditional concept of diet and exercise being the key to weight loss not really work? Why is it not really very successful? The bottom line is these 2 top arrows, respiration, growth and repair, we call that metabolism. And the intake that you get is going to basically use one of these 3 things. The popular thinking, traditional diets, they tell you that, well, it's easy. All you got to do is you increase your exercise, you run around a bit more, and you reduce your calories. And as a result, there's a shortfall between what you're putting in and what you're getting out. And so as a result, your body will be forced to metabolize all this fat, to burn this fat off, to produce the energy that you need, for survival. And of course, you'll lose weight. And that's absolutely correct. It's totally, no one can argue with that fact. But the problem comes with the fact that why did we need that fat in the first place? It's a survival mechanism. Now, your body is just a clever monkey, as I've said. And when you have a reduction in the amount of food that's available, basically your body has got to burn the fat. It's got to burn the fat because it needs it for metabolism, for energy. But does it just do that? Or can it do other things? It can, and it does. And what it does is it's going to not only burn off the fat, but it's also going to reduce the amount of energy that it needs for respiration. It's going to also reduce the amount of energy it needs for the growth and repair of tissues. Okay, so how can it do that? What is the actual mechanism by which the body can become more efficient when there's a shortage of food, so that it basically it can survive longer with this reduced calorie intake? Well, what it will do is two things. It will change the way the vital organs work. It will basically slow everything down inside the body, and the effect of that is you'll have less energy. You'll feel quite lethargic. What it will also do is it will start to shed muscles. Okay, it will basically it will use the glycogen stores, and then it will start to actually digest the proteins in the muscle and break down the muscles. That means that your overall, the net effect is that the animal that you're left with, the you afterwards, doesn't need as much energy to survive as the animal before. Okay, and it means that if you have a reduced calorie intake for a long time, you find a new equilibrium where fundamentally you are smaller and using up less energy. Okay. Now, let's assume you've done this. You've been on a diet. You've been eating nothing but Vitas and carrot sticks for 3 months. You've lost 2 stone. You're skinny. You've probably been quite irritable for 3 months. You don't want to stay there for very long. You probably don't have a lot of energy. You don't want to stay there for very long. You want to now just go back to eating a normal, healthy diet. This time, you're not going to get fat. This time, you're just going to be a normal, healthy diet. So, what happens? You start taking your food in as you do, as per normal. The body has choices. I can use this energy for respiration. I can use it to therefore crank up my vital organs and start to burn off more energy and get your vitality back and your energy back. Or you can use it for growth, and we can grow the muscles that it shed back and just turn back into a bigger lean machine. Or it can use it for fat production. Now, what's it going to do? It's just been starved. It doesn't know when it's next going to get, where this sudden intake of food is permanent, whether it's just a blip. What's the best thing for that organism to do to ensure long-term survival? Is it to take a chance and start respiring more? Is it to take a punt and grow stronger? Or would it be safest to store it as fat for the next time that there's not enough energy? And it makes sense just on an evolutionary survival point of view that to survive, that organism that's been exposed to low-calorie environments should store fat for the next time. And that's precisely what happens. And this is why, for a lot of people, this is their life, okay? The yo-yo dieter. What's actually happening over the course of the life of the yo-yo dieter is they're actually training their body with each cycle of dieting to get more and more and more efficient at storing fat for those lean times. So you see, this idea of dieting, which is well ingrained in so many people, is actually in many cases just doing the opposite of what we want it to. Over a long period, it's actually making the storage of fat on the body worse. So the solution is to stop dieting in the traditional sense, to stop actually going on these reduced calorie periods. Instead, what you want to do is you want to do the opposite. You mustn't get hungry. You basically want to keep the body constantly feeling that there is an abundance of energy and abundance of food, and therefore it doesn't, and to wean it off this idea that it has to keep storing energy for a rainy day. And if you do this for long, if you don't get hungry, at any point in the year, your body will actually become really quite inefficient with its energy again. Key is to eat often, eat 6 times daily, and small, and really just try not to try dieting, but just try to eat clean food. And I'll do that in the next video. And then instead of trying to burn off fat by dieting, what you want to do is you want to let your body burn off the fat by increasing your metabolism, and that's the key. So quickly, remember, metabolism is what we call the sort of combined term for respiration, growth, and repair. And your vital organs do most of your respiration most of the time. They're responsible really for most of the energy consumption that you have. Muscles in normal people with a fairly senescent job actually only use up a very small amount of it, as little as 5%. Okay, so that in itself implies that, well, your muscles can't really help us out very much, but we can do some things to our muscles that are going to significantly increase the amount of calories they require, the amount of energy they use up. And the key thing to that is to understand how they work when they're in different states. So when they're resting, they're using very little energy, okay? And that's most of us most of the time. But if they've recovering from exercise, and the specific type of exercise, resistance exercise, where the actual fibers of the muscle have actually had very small tears in them, the body has to remove the damaged tissue and replace it and build new tissue. And that's a very energy expensive process for any organism. And by making your muscles putting your muscles into this condition, it means they're going to start doing a lot of fat burning for you. So what we want is as much recovering muscles on us as possible at all times. Now, that means that the type of exercise we want to do is not to go to the gym and start running around on the treadmill doing aerobic exercises or anaerobic exercise. You may or may not know that as soon as you get out of breath, your body can't break down fat fast enough to provide you with the energy you require. So if you're on the treadmill or doing anything like that, you're out of breath, you simply aren't breaking down fat. That's why on lots of these machines you see the cardio training zone versus the fat burning zone. The problem with being in the fat burning zone is you've got to be working so gently that in order to really burn off any decent amount of fat, you're going to be there for hours, and I mean hours and hours and hours. So anaerobic training is definitely not going to work because it won't burn fat off while you're doing it. Being in the fat burning zone will work, but you've got to be there for days in order to do it. The best way to do it is to actually make sure that your muscles are damaged in the process of exercise in such a way that they're burning off the fat for you afterwards. And so what you want to do is you want to lift weights. Yeah? And this is really counterintuitive to a lot of people because they think, oh, weight training is all about getting bigger and I want to get smaller. But in fact, what you want to do is by training the muscles, by actually just doing proper weight training, what you're going to be doing is first of all, you're going to be making them have to use up energy to repair the damage that you've done to them. And in the short term, that's going to give you a seriously increased metabolism. It's going to make your body burn off a lot of energy to do this repair. Once you've got these muscles to grow, as they're bigger, what you're actually going to have, of course, will be more muscles that are going to be requiring energy. And if you've got more muscles, and those more muscles are still burning off more calories because you're still exercising them, then you can see very quickly you get sort of exponential increase in the amount of energy that you require for your muscles, and therefore you can actually very relatively quickly get to a point where you can eat almost what you want without having any of it stored as fat because you're actually increasing the amount of energy you require in your day. So here's basically your choices. If you do anaerobic exercise where you're just going to think, I'm going to go out and I'm going to try and run it off, it's not going to work. You will lose a lot of weight, but it will be fat and muscle and fluids, water. Okay? Whilst it's happening, you're going to feel terrible because nobody's going to enjoy your company because it's going to be a state. You're going to be craving food, and probably, unless you're I don't know, 1 in a million, chances are when you finish that diet, you're actually going to be quite likely to end up getting fat quite quickly afterwards. This is going to just come back on because your metabolism is really slow. If you change your mind on that and decide to go for resistance training, actually lifting weights, you can expect some unpleasant side effects. Your muscle's going to be sore, But don't think that's a bad thing. Whenever you've got a sore muscle, just know that's a little bit of your body that is currently using up calories. You may well get some subtle gains at first, and the reason for that is your muscles have to dilate with water, they'll get bigger, and therefore, the fat hasn't come off yet, but the muscle has gone on. So you might gain, this is completely the opposite, which is why I say throw the scales away. What you will have is you'll sleep better. That's definitely a fact. And what you'll get as a result of this is slow, steady fat loss and increased muscle tone and definition. Now, I want to point out that even if, whoever you are, if you put on 10% muscle mass, the increase to your total muscle mass by 10%, it is very, very unlikely to show anywhere on your body. Okay? If you're working on big, cool, compound exercises, you're not going to be going, oh, look, I've got biceps pumping out in here anywhere, or big fat neck muscles or anything like that. It's actually really quite hard to train the body to such an extent that muscles become visible. But it's very easy to increase your muscle mass for an average person by, say, 10% and actually increase the energy they require for their general metabolism by as much as 20% with a very simple program of lifting weights. And that's really what I'm going to go into next, is in the next video, is the weights to do, what sort of exercises to do and how to do them, and then about how to eat so that you're going to excrete as much energy as possible.